let's start with something that can help you this football season, shall we say. Support for the Don Lemon Show comes from ZBiotics. And this has become a must for me before a night out. It is called Pre-Alcohol, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic designed by PhD scientists to help you feel great the next day. So here's the deal. When you drink, alcohol turns into a toxic byproduct right in your gut, and that's what causes those rough mornings, not dehydration. ZBiotics creates an enzyme that breaks it all down before it builds up. I tried it before a friend's birthday dinner. I've told you about this several times. Had a couple of cocktails, and the next morning I was up early, out with the dogs, and I still had energy for my show. Total game changer. And now it is football season. It is upon us. And whether you're tailgating or celebrating at home, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Go to zbiotics.com/lemon to get 15% off of your first order with code LEMON. And if you're not satisfied, they're going to give you a full refund. No questions asked. That's zbiotics.com/lemon. The code is LEMON for 15% off. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. As you can see, I'm on the road doing the show from the road, and we're discussing what's happening in the world. Of course, we have the peace deal that happened, or at least they're working on a peace deal, the framework of a peace deal that they have announced. The president is traveling to the Middle East. He was in Israel earlier and is now, I believe, in Egypt still. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to discuss what I have been seeing in Chicago here with other folks who are on the ground and have been witnessing very similar things. So let me just start with this. And if we have some of the pictures, perhaps we can put it up. I'm not sure because it's nighttime there. All 20 of the remaining living hostages held in Gaza and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel walked free this morning as part of a ceasefire deal, pausing 2 years of war that really decimated the Gaza Strip and killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. Donald Trump earlier today left Israel on board Air Force One after a lengthy speech before the Israeli parliament. The president said that his speech to the Knesset said, quote, "The long and painful nightmare is finally over, and as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed, and a beautiful and much brighter future appears suddenly within your reach." And then we will see, because that is fragile. I'll talk to my guest about that, and I'll also talk to my guest about ICE, who is on the ground in Chicago, who has been witnessing a lot of this stuff. As a matter of fact, I saw him yesterday at a protest. Qasim Rashid is here. He's a human rights lawyer, Sirius XM host, and the author of Let's Address This Substack. Let's Address This Substack. Qasim, good evening to you, my friend. Thank you for joining. How are you?
I'm managing, living the dream, fighting the nightmare. How are you?
Yeah, well, I agree. Similar. So can we talk about, first, let's talk about the peace deal, and then we'll get to the unrest that's happening in Chicago, created really by law enforcement and not by the protesters.
Yeah.
This is a tentative peace deal. What I said is, these are my beliefs, that I hope this peace deal is not overly and heavily weighted towards Israel, and it ignores the humanity and the needs of the people in Gaza, because if it does that, it's not a real peace deal. It is just a pause in the fighting and the unrest.
I co-signed that 100%. And I want to remind viewers of at least 3 or 4 critical points. First point is that the framing throughout this entire process has been wrong. 10/7 was a war crime. It was not the start of violence. People often forget that in just the 1 year prior to October 7th, the Israeli government and settlers had killed about 250 Palestinian civilians in the West Bank, including 50 children. They had built about 12,000 illegal homes on Palestinian land. These are settlements that are illegal under international law. And they had taken about 8,000 to 10,000 Palestinians and put them in what's called administrative detention, which effectively is detaining Palestinians without any charge, arrest, access to counsel. Up to 800 of them were children as well. And what we're seeing now, so that's the first point. The second point is that the reason why I share your skepticism on this peace deal is that there have been 3 or 4 peace deals affirmed, including one in May of 2024, where the Israeli government proposed a peace deal that the Biden administration accepted and then pushed through a binding UN resolution that mandated the release of all hostages and an end to hostilities. And after the UN passed this binding resolution, Netanyahu said, "Nope, I disagree. We're going to go back on it and face no accountability." And let's not forget that the Israeli hostage negotiators themselves said that they had negotiated a peace deal that involved Hamas giving back all hostages, ceding power and control, and the Israeli government then also changed their mind as well. And so right now, I'm pleased that these 20 Israeli hostages are home, but I also think the conversation can't stop there. There's about 8 to 10,000 Palestinians held hostage in Israeli camps right now, many without any charge or trial. 400 to 500 of them children, which according to Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem are suffering sexual abuse at the hands of Israeli soldiers. There needs to be accountability for Palestinian hostages as well. Otherwise, as you said rightly, Don, the dehumanization is going to continue. And this, whatever peace we have now is not going to be sustainable.
Listen, also sharing, I think you can call it optimism, skepticism, right? Optimistic skepticism, if you will, is Richard Haas, who is a foreign policy expert. And he said, today is a rare day of good news. However, here it is.
Haas, let's start with you. 2 long years to get to this moment, but we should just underscore where we are today, that moment of relief, of joy that so many probably never thought would get here for these families of the final 20 hostages now on their way home.
No, absolutely. It's a political day, but it's also a human day. Tremendous relief, celebration, as you see. There'll be plenty of time later for saying, could we have gotten here sooner? A lot of today is also going to be about where do we go from here. The most interesting news of the day is not just is who's coming to Egypt. And the fact that you're going to have the leader of the Palestinian Authority is a very interesting development because the Israelis have tried to sideline them. But again, this is an important day of accomplishment. But let's be blunt. What remains to be accomplished, Jonathan, is incomparably greater than where we are. But that said, none of that can or should detract from the, what has been accomplished here. Kudos to President Trump for essentially driving this home. And again, it's the Middle East is not a part of the world we tend to associate with good news. Let's be honest. We tend to measure the history of the Middle East in wars. Today is a rare day of good news.
What do you think about that, Qasim?
The only thing I agree with him on is that we should acknowledge that this is a step forward. There's a lot of other innuendos and statements there made that I find confusing and confounding. Look,
tell me which way. Go. Tell me.
Well, there's a couple of issues, right? I mean, Donald Trump could have done this at any point in time. And for that matter, for anyone who's watching who's a conservative and thinks I'm just hating on Trump, Joe Biden could have done this at any time as well. Let's not forget that Ronald Reagan, 45 years ago, with a single phone call, stopped Israel from bombing Lebanon and then said, I don't know, had that kind of power. This is a fact. Look, I've been to occupied West Bank, Palestine. I've been to Israel. I've talked to Israeli soldiers directly. I've talked to Palestinian activists. They all understand that Israel doesn't do anything without U.S. approval. And now we have ample evidence from former Biden staffers, from the Israeli government, who say that Biden actually didn't put any pressure on us meaningfully to accept any kind of ceasefire deal as well. And so even Trump, he's 9-10 months into this. He talked about he would solve it on day one. There have been tens of thousands of Palestinians killed, certainly dozens of hostages killed in the last 9-10 months as well. So I don't want to sit here and suddenly give credit to somebody who could have done this a long time ago, especially when you continue to fund this genocide. That's one. But two, and this is the point that I really want to emphasize, and I don't think we can overstate this strongly enough, that for there to be lasting and sustainable peace going forward, 3 or 4 things need to happen. One, there needs to be an end to the military occupation of Palestinian lands. I don't know of a single person in any part of the world that is happy or content when a foreign military is occupying their land and taking their homes. That's one. Two, there needs to be meaningful empowerment of the Palestinian people, both through humanitarian aid, through rebuilding Gaza, and through ensuring their self-governance without foreign interference. And when I say foreign interference, I mean interference from the West, I mean from other Muslim majority countries, I mean from the Israeli government as well. And then 3, there needs to be meaningful prosecution of those who committed war crimes. The ICC has issued warrants for Hamas leadership and for Israeli leadership. Justice needs to be played out. We need to have due process of law and those who are accountable for these crimes need to be held accountable. If we can do those three things, I believe we can get to a place of sustainable peace. Without them, my fear is that this will be a pause of more violence in the future.
Can we just take a moment, though, and look at those pictures, which I believe these pictures say more than 1,000 words. Look at Gaza right now.
Right.
I mean, it is basically rubble.
Yep.
And it still looks like a war zone. It's going to take some effort to rebuild it. And I am hoping that they don't want to turn it into, as Donald Trump said, the Riviera of the Middle East. And I hope it gives the Palestinian people some autonomy to be able to run their own country and run their own lives without being under the thumb of Hamas. Here's Richard Haas again. We'll see if in this particular iteration or video, let's see if our response, if you agree or disagree here.
Well, it's going to be next to these immediate, these meetings, perhaps some of the first steps of this plan, but then we're going to have Israeli elections. And you're not going to have an accounting on October 7th before Israeli elections because Bibi Netanyahu will still be prime minister. So he's going to run for re-election. My guess is sometime this spring, against the backdrop of having, one, defeated Iran, and two, now brought the hostages home, even though some Israelis will not forgive him for the delay. My guess is he stands a pretty good chance. This is not advocacy. This is analysis. I think he's got a pretty good chance of getting the most votes. Then we'll see what's the political nature of the government he forms. Then we begin the new phase, which, if you will, is open-ended, which is the question of what comes next. And the real question for President Trump is, do we put on the table something that really begins to flesh out a peace? Because if you read the 20-point plan, the last 2 points deal with the political aspirations and trajectory of the Palestinians. They could not be more vague if you tried. They are essentially empty of content. And the question is, does the United States begin to fill out some of that content? And do we begin to push it? And do we basically make the peace, if we have to, over the heads of a reluctant Israeli government? Do we begin to work with the Palestinians, the Arabs, to build an acceptable partner for Israel? Negotiations don't just happen at the table. All the work to get to the table is going to be up to us. It's going to mean stabilizing Gaza, rebuilding Gaza, coming up with an acceptable Palestinian partner, selling the Israeli public, which in turn will push the Israeli leadership. That's going to be on the United States. That's the history of Middle East peacemaking. The question is this administration prepared to do that work? This would have to become one of the priorities, probably the leading or one of the two leading foreign policy priorities for this administration. And the question is, are they prepared to do it?
What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with Richard on this one. He's exactly right. You read the 20 points. The last two are extremely vague, and that gives me heartburn. If you talk,
but the last two are that's what deals with Gaza and rebuilding it, and the respect of the Gaza and the Palestinian people. That's the one. But there, he said it's vague. It's open-ended.
It is, and that's fundamentally the problem. And look, this is kind of what I mean by the importance of self-determination. Right now I have a petition on change.org right now that I've launched. It already has several thousand signatures, calling on the United States to recognize Palestinian statehood. If you want to talk about self-determination, and if you want to talk about equal justice under the law, then you need to ensure the people of Palestine have statehood and they have self-determination. More than 143 or 53 member states of the UN have recognized Palestinian statehood. The United States is one of 2 or 3, along with Israel, that refuses to. And because the United States is a UN member state that can veto other resolutions, it's not, Palestine hasn't gotten statehood yet. So for there to be meaningful self-determination, for there to be meaningful growth, to ensure that we don't let Hamas come back into power, well, then you need to have statehood. You need to have elections. You need to have people who recognize that their votes are going to matter, that there's going to be actual consequences of their votes and their elections. And again, you've reported on this before, but we need to make sure that people like Netanyahu aren't secretly funding Hamas, which is what he was doing through Qatar for years. Suitcases full of cash coming in to prop up Hamas, to undermine the Palestinian Authority, or to undermine any other organization within Gaza coming to power on democratic rules and principles. Where's the accountability for that? So the vagueness, I think Richard Haas is exactly right. It gives me cause for concern because it doesn't explicitly give Palestinians full authority and determination. One way that Donald Trump and the United States government can prove that they're sincere about this is to vote to say, yes, Palestine should be an independent and sovereign state with all the rights and responsibilities and obligations of an independent state. Now I think we'll start to see meaningful progress going forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Qasim. Look, I got to tell you, as I was watching this today, and I'll tell you a little secret. I don't know if it's so much of a secret. When I was in cable news and even in broadcast, we would, when I initially started, or if we were doing a show review or something we wanted to improve, is to turn the TV on and turn the sound off and watch and see if you understand what's going on. So as I did that today as I was going about my business, because usually, and I was in a hotel room, I usually don't have on, linear television. So I was watching today, and as I watched, I sent my team a note. This felt very Wag the Dog to me. I don't know why, like stagecraft, like a production of Trump Inc. of all of this, because you remember back in last year in 2024, where he told I think this is the same deal that Biden had. And he told them Republicans not to sign off on this, not to agree to it. And also the Bibi Netanyahu not to agree to it, because it was going to ruin his chances or hurt his chances of becoming president. And then he got into office. He could have done this when he first got into office, didn't do it. And as you said, thousands and thousands of people died in the interim. But it felt like stagecraft to me. It felt Wag the Dog as I'm watching.
And it's not without precedent, Don. You recall, of course, when Jimmy Carter was president and trying to secure the hostage release deal with Iran, Reagan and his team worked behind the scenes to prevent that deal from going into effect. And then, after beating Carter in the elections, and Reagan came in and enacted basically the exact same deal and took the credit for it. This is unfortunately the way that American politics has worked for a long time. That wag the dog strategy has been effective, but I think this is where it's so much more important that we have a united front in just demanding justice and basic humanity. You're not going to be able to advocate, and I don't mean you specifically, but as people outside of Palestine, we're not going to be able to advocate for Palestinians better than Palestinians. But that's where self-determination really comes into play, and I think that's where the pressure needs to be. That if you're sincere about this, if you're serious about this peace deal, if you're serious about sustainability, about making sure Hamas or another organization like them doesn't come to power, that they have democratic rule based on the will of the people, it has to start with an independent Palestinian state where Palestinians have rights over their own property, their own rules, their own laws, and their own ability to advocate for themselves on an international scale.
I want to tell the folks who are watching now, I need you guys to hit the thumbs up, hit the like, and support the channel. Independent journalism is where it's at. I heard it from the former vice president this weekend. I heard it from everyone I saw out in the field. And I heard it from Qasim Rashid, unsolicited.
That's right.
Over the weekend.
And I'll say it again. I've been out at these protests for a while now. I've been to dozens of them over just the last year, hundreds over the last couple of years. I can count on one hand how many times I've seen some of the mainstream corporate media outlets out there. They all seem to show up well after the fact. But Don, I didn't expect to see you in my backyard in Chicago. Just you and your small team just out there and making waves and being unapologetic about it, talking to all folks who are there. And so the folks watching, no, Don didn't ask me to say this. He didn't know I was going to say this, but those who have followed my work know that I don't just give endorsements or give praise for the sake of it. Don is doing the tough work, putting himself out there. And for those who haven't already subscribed to him, please do. I do. And I'm cherishing every bit of it. So you should also enjoy that too.
And thank you. We follow you as well, and you support Qasim. And then Qasim, before you leave, we'll get where you are, everywhere people can find you. Thank you for that. Now let's talk about what happened in Chicago and what's happening around the country. I want to introduce you to this man. Perhaps you saw him this morning, perhaps you did not. But his name is Luther. He's 66 years old. Andy, you can put his picture up. He's 66 years old. He's a black man born in America, has lived in America all of his life in Chicago. The ICE agents showed up at his door a few weeks ago and forced him, kidnapped him, put him in the back of a truck, a rental truck that you can get at a local car rental with 40 other people or so, and took him into custody and held him for 10 hours.
Yeah.
You're going to hear from Luther right after this. First, a word from our sponsors. I can't wait to hear what Qasim has to say about it, and you as well. This episode of The Don Lemon Show is brought to you by Graza, which is my go-to olive oil now. If you know me, you know I love cooking for friends, for my family, and Graza is the one that I always reach for. The secret is freshness, really. They pick, press, and bottle all of their olives in the same season, and you can see the harvest date. It's right on the bottle. They've got two incredible oils. One is sizzle and one is drizzle. Sizzle is for everyday cooking, roasting, sauteing, and anything in a pan. Drizzle is that bold finishing oil that makes everything better, from salads to bread to even a scoop of ice cream. So I use both of them all the time. Sizzle in the skillet, drizzle to finish. And right now is the best time to try them. Graza's annual site-wide sale is on. Everything is 20.74% off through October 21st. No code needed. So stock up right now. All you have to do is go to graza.co, Graza.co. Support also comes from my friends at Radioactive Media, the experts in podcast and audio marketing. Now, if you run a business or you handle marketing, here's the very truth, okay? The podcasts are no longer optional. That's where the audience is right now. Podcasts, the ad spending is up 33% this year. And shows with video like this very one are up nearly 98%. So listeners don't just tune in, they trust what they hear. And that's what makes podcasts so powerful. Radioactive knows how to launch and scale campaigns that deliver results. They'll even show you how to combine audio, video, and text messaging to generate up to 5 times more leads. So if you're ready to grow, start planning right now. Go to radioactivemedia.com, or you can text the word podcast to 511-511. That's podcast to 511-511, or go to radioactivemedia.com. Message and data rates may apply. And thank you so much to all of our sponsors. Okay, we're back. So I showed you the pictures of Luther, the 66-year-old man. I want you to hear everyone sit down and listen to a little bit of him. It's 22 minutes. I'm not going to play nearly that much, but I want to, Qasim, I'm not sure if you saw him on the show this morning, but I want to play it, and I want to get your reaction as an attorney, and then hear from the folks who are in the chats. Here he is. So you had to run in with ICE.
I had to run in with ICE on Monday night, September 29th. I was at home, minding my own business, and I heard a knock at the door. When I looked through the window, I could see people in uniform. They were wearing the green Army fatigue uniforms. When I answered the door, they come rush. They pushed their way in, and they asked me, is there anybody in here with you? And I told them no. So they told me, they said, we want you to come with us. And I'm like, what for? You know, what is this all about? And that's when they told me, they said, just shut up and come with us. Really? So at that point, I grabbed my backpack and I headed on out the door with them. When we got on the porch, they put my hands behind me. They put those plastic, not handcuffs, but
Zip ties.
They put those on me. And I could see my building is like 2 buildings, 7425 and 7431. And they had agents on my side and the other side. The other officers or agents were knocking on doors and they were bringing people out. Once they got me outside, we came down the street to the corner, and when we got here, right on the corner, right on 75th and Coles, they had a lot of units, a lot of cars were out here. There was some press, members of the press out here. They had right about where that car is at, they had a budget rent-a truck. They had it parked right over there.
Yeah.
And
Feel that.
And at that point,
Right where the blue car is, or the green looking car.
where that green looking car is at, and they put me up into the truck. When I got in the truck, there were already about maybe 10 people already in the truck. And then they started bringing more people, and putting them in the truck. They had everybody in zip ties. We waited, we were in the truck for about, I'd say maybe 20, 25 minutes. And they sealed the truck up, and the truck pulled off. Next thing I know, they're unloading us, and we were out at the facility in Broadview. We were out there, and they ushered us in.
I'm going to ask you about. I want to know what the conditions were like inside. But let's go back a little bit. When they knocked on your door,
Right.
and they told you to come out.
Right.
Did they tell you why?
No.
Did they ask you anything like who you are?
No. I tried to tell them because they had the word ICE on the back of their, on their back. So I knew who they were. And I asked them, why are you guys taking me? I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm not an illegal immigrant. And I was told to shut up and just follow instructions.
Okay.
And I did.
He did as he was told. He also had with him his birth certificate because he was handling some business with the state that he needed to do in order to get services. He had his birth certificate, he had the state ID with him, and also had his social security card. He said they did not care. It was in a backpack that he carried with him, luckily, to the facility. Did not care. There 10 hours. The truck, he said, actually later he says the truck filled up with people, and then he was in a cell inside that facility, he said, with, I guess, anywhere between 40, 60, 70 people. That's what he says. And one toilet, no seat, just a steel thing. Everybody had to do their business in front of everyone. And then eventually they let him go, no explanation. He's in a neighborhood that he's never really been to before. And then that's the end of it. What do you say to that, Mr. Attorney?
If I'm Luthor, my heart goes out. First of all, my heart goes out to you as a neighbor and as a human being. But if I'm Luthor, I'm finding an attorney to file a lawsuit against ICE for the denial of my due process rights, denial of my constitutional guarantees, my basic civil rights. This is inexcusable, and qualified immunity can never protect this in any way, shape, or form. There's so many laws, just based on what he's described, that are being violated here. First of all, the very basic due process right of requiring a judicial warrant to arrest somebody or to detain someone. This is what separates us, a functioning democratic republic, from any kind of dictatorship or autocratic country out there. Without this basic principle, and I emphasize this over and over again, and I will till I'm blue in the face, if we sacrifice this principle of due process through a judicial warrant, then we are already a dictatorship. If the government can just come and knock on our doors arbitrarily because they feel like it, and we have no recourse to say, hey, hold on a second, you haven't done what you needed to do to deny me my rights, then we don't have a functioning democratic republic anymore. We are a dictatorship. So I would absolutely file a lawsuit. Two, I would continue to do what Luther did and speak to you and speak to as many journalists as possible, local, state, and federal level. And again, God love you, Don, for letting his story get out there. But the people out there need to understand what's happening. One of the biggest things I get from our conservative friends is you're arbitrarily criticizing ICE. They're not going after citizens. They're going only after violent criminals. It's just not true.
I don't know. Did you see my conversation with the woman? She was confusing me. I'm like, lady, what are you talking about? They're going after. She goes, no, they're not. They're asking for papers. They're treating people humanely. I said, what?
Yeah, I did see that, and she doesn't seem to understand the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor. A felony is a criminal violation. A misdemeanor is a civil violation. A civil violation is the same thing as getting a speeding ticket or jaywalking. If you want to, take people and deport them for civil violations, which is what undocumented immigration is, well, then when are we deporting people who get a speeding ticket? When are we deporting people who get caught jaywalking or get a parking ticket? And I think that's where she was confused, and you were trying to explain that to her, but she wasn't really willing to listen. And that's the point here, that undocumented immigration, it is not a criminal violation. It is a civil misdemeanor offense that can be resolved. And as you know, Don, what ICE is doing is they're even going to people's immigration hearings. We're trying to do right by the law and arresting them there. I've got immigration clients who are panicked. I had one young lady who is a physician from another country, here, documented, green card, everything, went to her citizenship hearing, and send me a picture afterwards. She got her citizenship, but send me a picture afterwards. She wrote my cell phone number on her arm, saying, in case they detain me, I needed to know that I could call you. This is how afraid people are. This is a person who's a physician, has done everything right, saving lives of Americans every single day, scared to death that because of what's happening with ICE arbitrarily detaining people, she might get detained as well. This is not a free country if that's the way we have to live.
The violence that you saw out there, and I'm sure you saw some on our stream, there was a lot that we live streamed. The violence that we saw, who do you think is responsible for starting that violence?
Well, Donald Trump, it starts with Donald Trump because the president sets the tone for the entire country and the local ICE officers. Remember, if there's one thing we learned from the Nuremberg trials is that I was just following orders is not a viable or valid defense. The violence that I've seen over the last few months that I've been at the Broadview facility is all from ICE. And you can list off the acts of violence. The fact that they're shooting pepper balls, the fact that they're shooting rubber bullets, the fact that they have put up these barricades, an illegal fence that a federal judge said must be taken down, but is still up, the fact that they forcibly moved us, the fact that they have shields. You know, there's Dana Briggs, a 71-year-old Air Force veteran who is on camera being pushed down. And as he's falling, his arm appears to strike against a ICE officer as he's falling down, and now they're charging him with felony assault. So, you know, the violence is coming from the people with, you know, what's that old saying that if you want to see who's coming for violence, look at the ones that are prepared for violence. And those are the ones with the helmets and the masks and the batons and the AR-15 rifles and the helicopters in the sky and the snipers on the roof. We're sitting out here with plush toys and signs saying that ICE are fascists, and somehow that's more dangerous. It's nonsensical. We are exercising our constitutionally protected First Amendment right, and we will continue to do so as long as we possibly can. And that's why I encourage folks to get out there and exercise these rights. But make no mistake, the violence is one way. It's coming from this ICE organization.
Yeah, I'm going to show it in a little bit. But my question to you is then, so what happens now to these people who are doing this? Do you think that any of them will be prosecuted? Will any of them face any consequences for what I perceive is breaking the law?
I mean, again, it's going to depend upon an attorney general, either on the state or federal level. And this is actually what have been one of my
not Merrick Garland.
Yeah, certainly not Merrick Garland, certainly not Pam Bondi. But I think even on a state level, and this has been one of my questions to, you know, mayors and governors across the country. You know, I give credit to Gavin Newsom for passing legislation in California banning masks by ICE agents, which is a great step forward. But I think we need to go further. Last week, DHS put out a statement that 10 people coordinated an attack with 10 cars and attacked a DHS or ICE agent. 10 people. Guess how many people they've arrested? 0. They made up the entire thing. You know, last I checked, Don, filing a false police report is a felony. It's a crime. So where is the accountability? And I think the fact that they're targeting folks on the state level, I would love to see state AGs say, hey, you are targeting our citizens illegally. You are violating their due process rights. We are going to start charging these ICE agents because qualified immunity does not protect you from illegal acts. And what you're doing is, that's what I would love to see. So to answer your question, that's where I think accountability can begin. Whether it happens, it's going to depend on the AGs to do that. Yeah.
And I wonder if anyone's going to suffer the consequences of this. But I just want to play what I'm going to play next. I want to play this and then get your response. Here it is.
Please.
No weapons. Crowds, the Illinois State Police. Okay, this is your designated protest area. Okay, right now you are in a roadway. This is not the. Listen to me. This is not the designated area. We're telling you one time. Okay, you need to be on this side of the barrier, or you're obstructing.
This is not a dangerous crowd. We don't need riot gear. What are we obstructing?
Protesting. Regulations on protesting does nothing.
Be on this side of the barrier. You will be arrested.
Regulations on protesting is not protesting.
What are we obstructing?
That's the question, okay?
Corruption.
You can't protest from 9 to 6 p.m.
Breaking in plain view in front of you. For the last 2.5 weeks, how many
don't care about what he's doing, though. Why are you so concerned about people
Oh my God, here they come with the clubs.
Hey!
Really?
Guys, they're making it worse here!
So, Qasim, you see what's happening.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Thank you for documenting this. And I think this is an example. And I was there Friday morning where police threatened to arrest me along with several dozen others for simply standing on the grass behind these barriers, by the way. Let me be very clear. We were standing behind these barriers and they threatened to arrest us and kept us pushing us further and further away. Meanwhile, the fence that ICE had put up blocking the roadway altogether, a public roadway that a federal judge had ruled must come down, that fence was still up. And so this is the double standard that I'm talking about. If the law only applies to the powerless, it is by definition injustice. And that's what these folks are upset about. We're not asking for special treatment. We're not asking for magical treatment. We're asking for basic justice, equal access, equal determination under the law. If what these law enforcement officers right here with the billy clubs and the masks are saying is true, then why aren't they arresting the ICE agents who are doing this and worse? Why aren't they arresting the ICE agents who still have up a fence blocking the roadway contrary to what a federal judge has already ruled as unconstitutional? And that's fundamentally the contradiction that people are seeing, and that's why people are upset. It is this hypocrisy that is going to continue to enable the discord that we're seeing right now. And again, I think the solution to this is one, documenting this the way that you are, bearing witness so people understand what's happening. And then two, just getting a mass movement of people to show up and say, we are not going to back down. Our Constitution is worth fighting for. Our due process rights are worth fighting for. This nation is worth fighting for. And we're going to show up and exercise our constitutional rights because it's a basic right that we have as citizens, as anyone in this country.
Qasim, thank you so much.
Thank you,
My friend Qasim Rashid, where can we get you, sir?
You can find me on Substack at just substack.com/Qasim Rashid. Let's address this or at my name across whatever social media is your flavor of joy or doom scrolling. I'm on all platforms, just at my name. And my Substack focuses primarily on human rights issues. I have no paywall. If people want to subscribe, they're welcome to as a paid subscriber, but I don't believe in paying for access. So for those who want to subscribe, just to support my content the way it is, I would love to have your support too.
Everyone support him. Qasim Rashid is a human rights lawyer, a Sirius XM host, and the author of Let's Address This, Substack. Thank you, sir. Be safe.
Thank you, brother. You too.
Thank you very much. So look, I'm so glad to have someone like Qasim. I'm glad to have Qasim on. He is so knowledgeable and so kind to come on the show. And he is really, if you want to check his stuff out, because he knows what he is doing. I have more to share with you as it relates to what happened in Chicago. I'll tell you personal stories, how I feel about what I learned. But first, just give me 2 minutes, okay? Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Make sure you hit the like. Make sure you subscribe and become a member. But 2 minutes for a word from our sponsors. Support for the show comes from Lean. Look, we've all tried fad diets, juice cleanses, cabbage soup, you name it, but most people lose weight and then they gain it right back. I've been there. I've done it before. Doctors call that weight cycling, and it can lead to diabetes. It can lead to liver damage, heart attack, even stroke. So that's why Lean caught my attention. It is a non-prescription oral supplement, not an injectable, created by doctors to help you lose weight and keep it off. It targets weight loss 3 ways, helps maintain healthy blood sugar, it controls cravings, and it turns fat into energy. I've added it to my own routine, and it has helped me stay consistent and energized. So if you want to lose weight at a healthy pace and actually keep it off, you need to try Lean. Okay, so go to takelean.com and use the code LEMON for 20% off. That's TAKELEAN.com. The code word is LEMON for 20% off. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. October is Mental Health Month. And we're saying thank you, therapists, to people who listen, guide, and help us move forward. Therapy has been a huge part of my life. Just having a space to talk, to be challenged, to process, it can truly change everything. And if you have never tried it before, this may be your sign right now. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 licensed therapists. You fill out a short questionnaire, they match you with someone who fits your needs, and if it's not a good fit, you can switch at any time. They've helped more than 5 million people start that journey. So if you're ready to focus on your mental health, visit betterhelp.com/Don Lemon for 10% off of your first month. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/Don Lemon. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Yes, thank you so much to all of our sponsors. We appreciate them. They help us stay viable out here on the streaming independent media streets. So, you don't know what's happening until you see it in person. Until you bear witness to it. And I've been bearing witness to some things that are just angering me, and I'm very disappointed in our government in America right now, that we are forgoing what the Constitution allows us to do, that that our forefathers wanted, the separation, number one, between church and state, but also just denying people basic human rights. Remember, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution says all persons shall have due process, not all citizens. And so we need to continue to discuss what's happening in the streets. We need to continue to pay attention to it. We need to continue to, I think people have really become jaded or just tired, and they feel that they have no recourse, no agency. What can I do? Nothing's going to change. I'll just have to ride this out. I don't know about that. I think if we just ride it out, we won't have a democracy on the other side. And we've gone pretty far. We may have tilted over too far. I believe we have. Perhaps we can bring it back. I do not know. But I will tell you, the folks who I did encounter out there who believed what this administration is saying about what's happening, they're believing the propaganda coming from places like Fox News and other conservative sites. I don't know if their minds can be changed. For some reason, like the truth, it doesn't compute to them. There is some sort of weird cult thing. I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know what's going on. I do know exactly what's going on. What's going on is that they're blinded by ideology, and they always have been, and that they don't believe in what they say they believe in. They don't believe in the Constitution. I was looking because I have it in my bag, and my bag is outside here. But the Constitution that I carry around, they don't believe in any of those things. It's heartbreaking to see someone like Luther being treated worse than an animal. Can you imagine how that feels? Luther happens to live by himself, but imagine that happening. Similar things happening to parents, women, mothers who are picking their kids up from, they're in the carpool line or in the pickup line at school. I met this one woman the other night, I believe it was Friday night, as I was out talking to people. And it was just so poignant. She cut to the chase. And she said, "Leave those people alone." 4 words. I said, "What do you think of this?" She goes, "Look, I don't look." And then she thought about it and she said, "Leave those people alone." And I have to agree with her, because the people I met. Now, look, let me just say this. I believe that if you're coming over the border, that you should do it the right way and go through the proper channels. But what I try to explain to these people is that we don't know what hardships that people are dealing with, why they're coming across the border, what kind of pressure they're under, what they're escaping. Not everybody is going to come over and then go to the immigration office immediately. What we need is comprehensive immigration reform. But Republicans keep voting against it. And what I tried to explain to the people is that Republicans keep voting against your health care. Everyone in America should have health care. That's not a conservative argument or a liberal argument. That's a humane argument. Everyone should have access to affordable health care. And they are not taking money from veterans to give to migrants or undocumented people. That's another line of bullshit that you're being fed. They're keeping the people, the poor people, the working class people fighting amongst each other, the people who are not gazillionaires fighting amongst each other so that they can keep power. And you are allowing them to co-opt you. Like, like my mom used to tell me, or my dad, they'd say, oh, and your dumbass fell for that. Yes. That's what's happening. That's what you're doing. You're falling for the okie doke, the banana in the tailpipe. And so, that said, I'm going to leave it there as it relates to what's happening with that. But I want to talk about Gaza, because don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe as well. Now, I hope that there is lasting peace there. I hope that this deal sticks. And if it does, I think whatever, accolades that Donald Trump is owed, that he should get. Okay? So let me just say that. But I also want to say, as I said before, if this is heavily weighted towards Gaza, towards Israel and not towards Gaza, that's a problem, because there is a silence that is happening over Gaza right now. And it's not the silence of peace. It is a silence of a cemetery after the mourners have all gone home. It is the kind of silence that hums with memory, with names, with absence. I know that silence. I've experienced it recently and still going through it. My mom is still going through that silence. One of the most devastating moments that I had was, can I just be real with you guys? Can I just be graphic and I know you may not want to hear this. So I have buried two sisters who are older than me. And they are the people that share the longest memories of me. I wanted to write about this on Substack, but it's just too close. I couldn't. It's too hard. It's too hard. But I lost the people who I had the longest memories with my siblings, right? Who, when I was a kid, they taught me things. They protected me. They, made me do things. They'd make me go ask for things from our parents that they knew that they said, oh, you'll get away with it, right, Don? All of those. So the people I have the longest memories on this earth with are gone. And putting my sister into that, not just the coffin, but into that cement and bricked off wall, dark and cold. That was a silence for me that hums with all the memories and the names, and then now the absence. That's my screensaver right here. My sister's high school picture, 1979. So I have compassion for people who are suffering. Yes, the Israeli people are suffering. But have you seen the pictures in Gaza? We showed you live pictures. If we have them now, show them. Have you seen the devastation? It is the sound of a land that you hear, that silence, trying to remember what it was before all the bombs fell. And I know what Hamas did, of course. Horrific. But for the first time in 2 years, there are no sirens screaming through the night, no explosions lighting up the horizon, no soldiers kicking down doors, but that quiet is heavy. And if you know it, you know that heavy silence. It's heavier perhaps than the noise ever was when all the people go home, or when there's no home to go back to. Because silence after war does not erase the horror of that war. It amplifies it. It forces us to sit with what's gone and what cannot be brought back. If you know grief, if you've ever lost someone, or you've ever been in a devastating situation, you know what I'm talking about. So they're calling this a ceasefire. Israel and Hamas have agreed to stop shooting, at least for now, and it appears to be holding, and let's hope that it does. Any lives saved, I'm for it. The hostages have now been released. The pictures of them were heart-wrenching. You couldn't help but feel for the people. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners are set to be freed, and they were freed as well. Humanitarian aid is beginning to trickle into the place, a place that has been starved for almost everything, including hope. And for a brief, trembling moment, the world exhaled. Did it look like pageantry? Yes. To me, it did. Partly it felt like a Trump Inc. production. But if you listen closely, the air is still thick with grief, y'all, because there is no truce that can bring back the dead. Nothing. Let me tell you, they ain't never coming back. When someone is dead, it is over. No agreement that can undo starvation. There's no agreement that can undo trauma, the orphan children, none of it. There is no deal on earth that can rebuild a graveyard. 67,000 Palestinians are gone, a third of them children. Another 169,000 are injured. More than 90% of Gaza's homes are damaged or destroyed. Nearly 80% of its infrastructure is gone. Of 36 hospitals, only 14 still function, and even they are running on fumes. Over 1,700 healthcare workers, the very people meant to save lives, were killed trying to do so. 90% of schools are destroyed or repurposed. 750,000 children no longer have classrooms to return to. And the reason I'm telling you that is because these are not statistics. They are the skeletal remains of a society. Why aren't you talking about Israel? Israel, it is awful. But let me just say this. Israel has abundant resources. That does not quell the pain of the folks who've lost loved ones there. But they have resources. They're not rebuilding from scratch something that has been demolished. So someone needs to speak, and we need to make sure, all of us, at least to know that if this is so heavily weighted towards Israel, that the people of Gaza, the Palestinian people, don't feel that they have any agency or autonomy, then what is it? How is that peace? From March of 2025 onward, Israel's near total blockade choked Gaza of food, fuel, medicine, even water. Starvation is now a weapon of war. UNICEF estimates 71,000 children and 17,000 mothers are at risk of acute malnutrition. Nearly 500,000 people are on the brink of famine. Every single person in Gaza, everyone is classified as food insecure. Every single person. There are wounds here that are deeper than rubble, wounds that will not show up in headlines or casualty counts. That doesn't show up. And so we find ourselves at this very uneasy place right now. We find ourselves at the place of relief and horror coexisting all at the same time, at the same breath. I know that's redundant. Coexisting at the same time. Coexisting means at the same time. I know that. The same time at the same breath. There is gratitude. People are grateful that the bombs have stopped. And there is rage that they ever started and that they lasted so long. And that there was pardon my words, overkill in the response. Rage that it ever started. There is hope that rebuilding might begin, and there is despair at how much has been destroyed. And hovering over all of it is the most painful question of all. What does justice really look like now? What does it look like? So don't be lulled by this ceasefire. The silence does not absolve anyone of anything. War crimes must still be investigated. Those responsible must still be held accountable, not as a gesture, but as a matter of principle. Because if accountability is optional, then history will definitely repeat itself. And next time, the silence will fall over a different city and a different people. Rebuilding Gaza cannot mean simply laying new bricks where the old ones fell. It must mean restoring human dignity. It must mean housing and hospitals, water, electricity, schools, libraries, playgrounds, swimming pools. Community centers. all kinds of things. It must mean programs to feed the hungry, to heal the traumatized, and educate a generation born into rubble. As Qasim was speaking, I was watching the pictures of these kids that were walking amongst the rubble, even some in wheelchairs, being pushed in wheelchairs. Anything less would be cosmetic, a coat of paint on a moral failure. And remember that comment you must watch for. Gaza is virtually uninhabitable. I'm paraphrasing. Making it into the Riviera of the Middle East. And if the world is serious about peace, truly serious, it must confront the deeper sickness that made this war possible. The statelessness, the displacement, the decades-long denial of Palestinian humanity. Without that reckoning, there can be no future. Without that reckoning, this silence will not last. Under these circumstances, without that, it's not going to last. We must also confront something even more uncomfortable, okay? And so this is, and let me tell you, my producer helped me to write this, and I changed a lot of it. So, if you are not happy with it, you tell me, not Peter. But this is something that I added and that I think is really important because we have to confront something that's even more uncomfortable. Something older and much deeper than politics. And you guys know I wrote a book on religion. And so this is something that's recently wrote the book, that's very near and dear to me. Even as a person of belief, a believer. We also have to confront something that's even more uncomfortable, something older and deeper than politics. This conflict, like so many before it, has been justified by scripture. People believing this is for them, that's for them, we can do this, the Bible says this, the Quran says this, the Torah says that. It has been justified by scripture. It has been waged in the name of beliefs written down by men centuries ago and handed to us as sacred truth. Do we know for sure? Do you know for sure of what you're acting and becoming so animated and lives are being lost over? Do you know for sure that what you believe is actually true? Written by men centuries ago, handed to us as sacred truth. And yet we are capable of believing in stories passed from one generation to the next generation. If we can stake our lives and our wars on the unseen, which is what? Faith is the evidence of things not seen. If we can base it on things that are unseen, then surely we can believe in something that's more tangible. And you know what's more tangible than something that is unseen? The worth of a living human being. That's what's tangible. That's what we know for sure. That's the moment that we're living in. That is the present. That is not living in the past. That is not living in history. That's not living in ancient times. And that's not living and causing people not to live and die over something that you are not even 100% sure is true. Say what you want. Surely we can build our moral compass around the breath of a child, the dignity of a mother, the sanctity of a human body, not just the words of prophets that we have never met. If our faith cannot stretch far enough to honor life over land, compassion over conquest, humanity over history, then maybe what we are practicing is not faith at all. Maybe it's idolatry. Maybe we are worshiping the past at the expense of the present. The ceasefire does not get us off the hook. It should make us more uncomfortable, not less. It should not soften our outrage. It should sharpen our outrage, because the question before us now is not how we stop the next war. It's how we live with ourselves if we do nothing to prevent it. And so I say to those who feel relief today, do not let that relief become amnesia. And to those who feel despair, do not let that despair turn to resignation. So let this silence be a mirror. Look into it, and I want you to ask this: what do the people of Gaza deserve? Not what they will be offered, not what the powerful will decide they are owed, what they deserve as human beings, as people, as survivors. We cannot bring back the dead, but we can honor them by demanding a world in which no one else has to die like this. We cannot unmake the graveyards, but we can refuse to build any more of them. The silence is a miracle, but it's not enough. And if it moves you at all, let it move you to action, because justice does not arrive on its own. You know that. You got to fight for justice. It is built, like every home, every school, every future, by human hands. I'll see you in our private stream in just moments. Go to donlemon.com if you want to know anything about the show. In the meantime, until I see you back here, if you're not that level of membership, until I see you back here at 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning for Hot Topics, turn the TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.